When my son married a scammer who only cared about draining our family wealth, I knew I had to build something unbreakable to protect him. I never told him what was really secured in the downtown law office vault. My daughter-in-law, Miranda, always looked at my estate documents with calculating eyes. "Father Richard, why do you not just simplify your will already?" She has no idea that the complex trust structure will be the very thing that exposes her. I have endured her schemes for long years, waiting for this exact moment. The day her trap collapses, and the truth finally surfaces. Before we unlock the secret of the legal fortress, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to join our community. We would love to know which part of the world you are joining us from today. Please remember, while this story draws from real-life patterns, some names and details have been fictionalized for your entertainment and education. Stay tuned. The lesson ahead is one you will not want to miss. 2 years after everything unraveled, I am telling you the story from that time. I am Richard Caldwell. I am 67 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. The kind of city where rain falls most days, where bridges cross the Willamette River, and where people value privacy and independence. That is something I learned through bitter experience. I spent a lifetime in this city raising my son here after my wife Diane passed away 15 years ago from sudden cardiac arrest. I thought I had prepared myself for whatever challenges life might deliver. Turns out I had no idea what was approaching. My son is named Michael. He is 30 for now, brilliant with technology, with a generous heart, the kind of person who believes people are fundamentally good even when evidence suggests otherwise. 4 years ago, he married a woman named Miranda Chen. I remember the engagement announcement like it was yesterday. Everything appeared flawless on the surface. The ring looked expensive. The proposal story sounded romantic. Everyone smiled for the Instagram photographs. I stood there watching my son announce his future, and I felt something twist in my stomach. It was not happiness. It was something else entirely. I did not say anything that day. I smiled. I congratulated them both. I raised a toast that made relatives laugh. But I had already seen something in Miranda's behavior, a way she assessed our family assets that was not quite appropriate. It was calculating, like Michael was an investment opportunity rather than someone she genuinely loved. At that time, I was already protecting a secret for 15 years since Diane died. I had been working with estate attorneys downtown, not because I was paranoid or because I did not trust Michael. I worked with them because I needed a structure, a legal fortress really, where I could secure the things that mattered most. Diane's life insurance proceeds, the investment portfolios, the business sale proceeds, the trust documents that protected Michael's future. Everything that represented our family's financial security built over 40 years of work. Most people thought my estate plan was unnecessarily complicated. When I mentioned it in conversation, I would get the look, the kind that said, "Why would you make things so difficult?" I let them think that it was easier that way. But the truth is, I had spent years assembling a protection system for my son. Diane and I had done it together before she passed. We had created an irrevocable trust, a spendthrift clause, a corporate trustee structure. We had made sure Michael would never be vulnerable no matter what happened in his life, no matter who he married, no matter what schemes someone might attempt. I never told Michael about the full extent of these protections. That was the real secret. When he married Miranda, I made sure he did not have direct access to the principal. I kept the trustee authority separate. I could not explain why at the time. Not really. I just felt it in my bones. Something about Miranda was not right. For the first 3 years of their marriage, I watched carefully. I had dinner with Michael when he would make time. I called him regularly. Though the calls became shorter and less frequent, I noticed small things. The way Miranda would redirect conversations toward money. The way she would question him about what I might be leaving him. The way she would subtly discourage him from spending time with me alone. I started keeping notes, just little observations in a secure digital file I kept password, protected on my personal computer. Then Patricia called. Patricia Monroe has been my closest friend for 28 years. She is not the type to spread rumors or exaggerate situations. So when she called me one afternoon, 4 years into Michael's marriage, and told me that she had overheard Miranda talking to someone at a coffee shop about my estate, about how much my net worth was, about how it would all go to Michael, about how much easier things would be if I simply was not around anymore, I believed her completely. Patricia is not a liar, and she was not calling to create drama. She was calling because she was genuinely frightened. That is when I understood. All of those years of careful planning, all of those hidden legal structures, all of the protection I had built around Michael, it had been for this moment. I did not know it then, but my entire professional life had been leading to this single conversation with my oldest friend, where she told me that my daughter-in-law was capable of something unthinkable. I hung up the phone and sat in my home office for a long time. I thought about Diane. I thought about the way she had insisted on the irrevocable trust, the way she had insisted on the spendthrift provisions, the way she had left me notes, documents I had found after she passed away that seemed to suggest she understood risks I did not fully comprehend. She had written things like, protect Michael with legal structures, not just words. Protect him from people who would exploit love as a gateway to wealth. I never fully understood those warnings until that afternoon, and suddenly, I realized that I had been preparing for this exact situation my entire adult life. Not consciously perhaps, but every legal decision I had made, every protective clause I had negotiated, every safeguard I had implemented, it had all been leading here to this moment, where I had to decide what to do with the dangerous truth I had been carrying. I opened that password-protected file. I looked at 3 years of observations, and I understood finally that it was time to stop merely watching and start actively protecting. It was time to strengthen those legal barriers. It was time to show Michael what I had been protecting him from all along, though I knew he was not ready yet to hear it. But I had no idea then how far Miranda was willing to go, or how much truth my son would eventually have to face in order to survive her. After Patricia's warning, my mind went back to the beginning, back to the evening when everything started to feel wrong. It was that Sunday brunch when Michael first brought Miranda to meet me. I was preparing coffee when she walked through the door, and I knew it immediately. It took me exactly 20 seconds to realize this woman was different from any girlfriend he had introduced before, and not in a positive way. Michael looked happy. He had that energy people get when they think they have found something valuable. He introduced Miranda with pride in his voice, his hand finding hers automatically. They appeared compatible like the successful professionals, at least on the surface. But something in the way Miranda assessed my home made my instincts alert. She was attractive, I will acknowledge that. Polished, well-dressed, articulate, the kind of person who knew how to smile at strategic moments and ask impressive questions. She complimented the house before she had even toured it. She asked about my career, about my years in Portland, about my investments. All appropriate questions, all delivered with perfect timing. But there was something underneath it all, a calculation I could sense even if I could not precisely name it. When we sat down to eat, Miranda turned to me with a casual tone. This is a beautiful property. Richard, how long have you owned it? It was not a random question. I had learned to read people after 67 years, and I could see the assessment happening behind her eyes. She was not asking because she appreciated architecture. She was evaluating, calculating, trying to determine what I was worth and what she might gain by knowing it. 28 years. I answered simply, cutting into my omelet. Diane and I bought it together. She nodded, storing that information away like an accountant recording assets. Must be worth quite a substantial amount now. Portland real estate has appreciated significantly. Michael laughed nervously. Miranda, we just arrived. Let us enjoy the meal. But I had already seen it. The way she looked at him when he said her name, like he was an asset she had already acquired. It was not the look of a woman in love. It was the look of a person who had identified what she wanted and was methodically going about obtaining it. Diane used to talk about this years ago before she got the diagnosis. She would tell me about people who wore charm like a costume. She would say, "Richard, love does not need to calculate. Love does not inventory. Love does not keep financial spreadsheets." I remembered those words, sitting there at my own dining table, watching Miranda ask Michael to pass the butter while her eyes stayed fixed on me, assessing, measuring, valuing. She asked about my career that morning, what I had done, how long I had been retired, whether I was still active in business consulting or fully withdrawn. She asked about investments, about whether I had traveled internationally, about whether I had substantial life insurance. That last question caught my attention. Though I did not show it, she framed it casually, mentioning something about her own employer-provided policy. But the timing felt deliberate. "Everyone should have comprehensive coverage," she said, smiling at Michael. "You never know what circumstances life presents." Michael squeezed her hand, completely unaware of the subtext. He was just pleased she was engaging with his father. To him, this was a woman building relationship with his family, asking normal questions. He had no idea that every question was a thread she was pulling, trying to map out the financial territory she had decided to occupy. After brunch, Miranda helped me clear the table. For a moment, we were alone in the kitchen, and I felt the weight of her focus shift entirely onto me. It was subtle, just a change in atmosphere. A slight sharpening of her expression when she thought Michael could not observe. "Richard, you have built an impressive life," she said, loading dishes into the dishwasher. "Michael is fortunate to have this financial security to inherit eventually." There it was. Not "I am fortunate to have Michael," not "we are going to build something meaningful together," but "Michael is fortunate to have financial security to inherit," like that was the purpose of his existence. To transfer wealth she had identified. I did not respond. I just kept rinsing plates and handing them over to her. Later that evening, after they had left, I sat in my study with a glass of scotch. Diane's photograph was on the shelf above my desk, the one taken on our anniversary back when we were young and everything seemed straightforward. I stared at it for a long time. She would have seen what I saw. That immediate recognition of predatory behavior. She would have understood that Miranda Chen was not interested in my son as a human being. She was interested in what came with him. The house, the investments, the inheritance I had built. Michael was just the access point to get there. That evening, I made a decision. I was not going to confront Michael. Not yet. He would not believe me anyway. Not after just one meeting. Not when he was already emotionally invested in her. And if I spoke up too early, I would just push him closer to her. I had observed it happen countless times before. A father who warns his son about a woman, and suddenly that son is determined to prove everyone wrong. So instead, I decided to watch, to document, to wait for the pattern to reveal itself fully. I opened a new encrypted file on my computer, something Miranda could never access. Something Michael would not accidentally discover. I titled it Estate Protection Documentation and dated the first entry, Sunday, first meeting with Miranda Chen. Then I typed down everything I had observed, the questions she had asked, the way she had assessed Michael, the calculation in her eyes, the comment about inheritance. All of it. I told myself I was just being cautious, being protective. But deep down, I think I already understood. I think some part of me recognized that this was not just a girlfriend Michael was dating. This was a threat, a calculated threat. And I was beginning documentation that would 4 years later become the only thing standing between my son and financial devastation. I should have said something that evening. I should have pulled Michael aside and told him what I had seen in Miranda's assessment of our assets. But I did not know yet how far she was willing to go. I only knew I had to watch, document, and wait for the moment when I would need to act decisively. The real warning came 8 months into their marriage. It was subtle, so subtle that Michael did not even recognize it. But I did. It started with a question Miranda asked him one evening. Michael called me in a voice that sounded different, confused, slightly defensive. She asked if we could talk, and I knew immediately something had shifted. Dad, Miranda thinks I should understand more about the family finances, he said carefully. She says it is strange that I do not know details about your estate planning. She thinks you are keeping secrets from the family. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This was Miranda's strategy. Calculated, manipulative, but brilliantly executed. She had made Michael question me without ever having to voice a direct accusation herself. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her I did not really think about it much, Michael said. But now I am wondering, why have you not told me about your estate plans, Dad? It does seem somewhat unusual. Of course it seemed unusual to him. Miranda had made Michael question me without ever appearing to be the instigator. She had planted a seed of doubt about his own father. But that was not even the most concerning part. 2 weeks later, Michael called me again. This time, he was genuinely upset. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course, I said. What is happening? Miranda says that Patricia has always been jealous of our family. She says Patricia told her that she thinks our marriage was a financial mistake. She says Patricia wants to interfere because she resents our success. I went very still. Patricia, my oldest friend, the woman who had been part of my life for 3 decades. The woman who had warned me about Miranda's coffee shop conversation. Miranda was lying to my son about her, and he was starting to believe it. Michael, that is absolutely not true. Patricia would never say those things. How do you know that, Dad? How do you really know what Patricia says when you are not present? The question landed like a physical blow. He was actually starting to doubt Patricia now. Miranda had successfully taken one of the most important relationships in his life and poisoned it with fabricated accusations, and Michael, being trusting and loving, was starting to believe it. Miranda has no reason to lie to me, he said, defensiveness entering his voice. She barely even knows Patricia. Why would she fabricate that? Because Miranda was systematically isolating my son. She was severing him from the people who might protect him, who might see what she was doing, who might warn him before it was too late. And she was doing it so skillfully that Michael could not even perceive it happening. Over the following weeks, I watched as Michael pulled away from Patricia. He did not return her calls as promptly. He made excuses when she invited us both to dinner. And worst of all, I could see the suspicion in his eyes when he looked at her. Suspicion that Miranda had carefully cultivated there. This was the moment I truly understood what I was confronting. Miranda was not just a gold digger looking for easy money. She was something more dangerous. She was methodical. She was strategic. She understood psychological manipulation in a way most people do not. She knew exactly how to control my son, not through obvious force or direct demands, but through seeds of doubt and carefully constructed lies. One night I sat in my study and accessed an encrypted file, the one I had started after the first Sunday brunch. I scrolled past my initial observations about Miranda's questions, her calculating assessment, her comment about inheritance. Those had seemed concerning, but they were nothing compared to what I was witnessing now. I documented everything. The conversation Michael had reported about Miranda questioning my estate secrecy, the fabricated story about Patricia, the way Michael was starting to isolate from my oldest friend, the manipulation tactics happening in real time. And as I typed, something crystallized in my understanding. This was not just about money, though money was certainly central to it. This was about total control. Miranda wanted to control Michael completely. His relationships, his perceptions, his sense of reality. She wanted to make certain that when the moment came where he needed someone to tell him the truth, there would be no one left he trusted. His father would seem like he was hiding assets. His family friend would seem like she had jealous motivations. And Miranda would be the only person he could rely on. It was a textbook case in financial manipulation, and it was happening to my son in real time. That night, I made a critical decision. I was not going to confront Miranda directly. I was not going to try to convince Michael immediately that she was lying. I had learned enough about manipulation to know that would only drive him closer to her. Instead, I was going to strengthen every legal protection I had ever built. I was going to document everything systematically. I was going to build an evidentiary record that would eventually show Michael the truth when he was finally ready to see it. I contacted my estate attorney, Donald Shepard, the next morning. "Donald, I need to add additional protective layers to the trust structure," I said. "I want to make it completely impossible for anyone to access the principal without corporate trustee approval. I want forensic accounting triggers built in. I want any attempt to manipulate distributions to be automatically documented and reported." "What is happening, Richard?" Donald asked directly. "I believe my daughter-in-law is planning something," I said, "and I want to make certain that when she moves, the legal structure catches her." Over the following months, Donald and I rebuilt the entire estate plan. We added spendthrift provisions that made it impossible for creditors or spouses to access trust assets. We installed corporate trustees who had fiduciary duties independent of family pressure. We created forensic monitoring that would flag any unusual distribution requests. We built a legal fortress that Miranda could see but never penetrate. And then I waited. I documented every conversation. I tracked every manipulation attempt. I recorded every lie Miranda told Michael about me, about Patricia, about our family finances. I was building a case, brick by brick, page by page, month by month. 4 years into their marriage, Miranda made her fatal mistake. She attempted to forge my signature on a will amendment, a document that would have redirected my entire estate to Michael immediately upon my death. With no trust protections, no corporate oversight, no safeguards, just direct transfer to Michael, which meant direct access. For Miranda, she had obtained my signature from a birthday card. She had practiced the forgery. She had even consulted with a disreputable attorney who helped her draft the fraudulent document. But what Miranda did not know was that Donald Shepard had installed monitoring on my estate files. Any attempt to file a new will or amendment would trigger immediate forensic review. When Miranda submitted the forged document to the county records office, alarms went off instantly. Donald called me within 2 hours. "Richard, someone just attempted to file a fraudulent will amendment in your name. The signature is forged. We have already contacted law enforcement." It was over. 4 years of manipulation. 4 years of isolation tactics. 4 years of careful planning on Miranda's part, all destroyed by one desperate, illegal act. The police arrested Miranda 3 days later. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signature, fraudulent legal documents, intent to commit estate fraud. Michael was devastated, but he finally saw the truth. I showed him the encrypted file. 4 years of documentation, 4 years of recorded manipulation, 4 years of lies exposed in chronological detail. "Dad, why did you not tell me sooner?" he asked, tears streaming down his face. "Because you would not have believed me," I said gently. "You had to see the pattern yourself. And now you have." The legal protections held. The trust remained intact, and my son, finally free from manipulation, began the long process of healing. That storage unit of secrets downtown, the legal fortress I had built, it had done exactly what Diane and I had designed it to do 15 years earlier. It had protected our son when he could not protect himself.